Hello, welcome back, and we're going to treat the last section of this course. Now, you've looked at how to remove your keys and vital information or vital credentials from your code base. Then, before you push or even commit to Git, the next thing for us to do here is actually to deploy. For instance, at the moment, you only can use your application or your API endpoints. Why? Because it's still within your laptop. Have you ever thought of, okay, how do people now actually get to use this? That's what we call deployment. So by the end of this section, you see how to deploy your Django application to a production server and configure it for real world usage. Now, let's get right into it. So, first off, your app works on your machine, or our project app, it works on your machine, but this time it's actually time to share it with the real world and to have maybe the front end React and maybe Vue and all of that to actually now integrate backend APIs. So they need an access to it from outside of here. And how do we then go about it? It's to deploy. So, and before we deploy, we need to make some basic configurations. We need to change our debug. Like Django, like I made mention in it before we concluded the last section, Django will advise you don't use your secret key as it were. You have to change it so you also make sure that all your keys are contained in your env, that you're not pushing it to Git and to GitHub. Right. So the other thing we need to do is to turn off our debug. Debug true is usually to help for debugging, and it's for development purposes only. As soon as you're pushing it to production, ensure you turn your debug to false. Now, the database we're using is actually a development database, just simple for local testing. But when you want to now get into the real database, into the real life deployment, you have to use an actual database. There's the PostgreSQL, there's the MySQL, and there's MongoDB and a lot of other databases out there. But the one we're going to particularly utilize in this course is going to be PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL, right? So I'm going to add in some security features to allow our application become readily available. Right. So there are lots of deployment platforms out there. There's Heroku, Python Anywhere, Railway, or OnRender. There's DigitalOcean or VPS. Um, there's AWS, Azure, GCP or GCP. This is enterprise level service, right? Now, your Heroku is actually most recommended. It used to be free. However, it's no longer free anymore. So I'm going to go with the next. This is very simple to use actually, but it starts to be a bit bottleneck when you have or you need support for some features such as, let's say you want to run Celery and all of that. This becomes a bottleneck. Now there's the Railway or OnRender, which is what we're likely going to use. Railway, there's no free version, so you have to make a payment. So we're going to go with OnRender, which there is a free version for the purpose of this course. Right, so we're going to move right to that. But before then, let's actually configure our project. Let's first create an account on Render. So if you don't have an account before, go to your browser on Render. Make sure you have a, an app created here. And as soon as you do, you can go ahead and log in. I already have an account with them before. And you can see it just takes me to my dashboard. Now, from there, having created this, the next thing you want to do, remember I told us that we need to do some configurations here. We already have a secret key coming from my env file. Then we want to do some other configuration, right? Which first is your database, like I made mention of. You're not going to use this database for production. You need this database. You need to switch to a production database. And we're going to use PostgreSQL, and we're going to create a PostgreSQL from here. You can see Postgres. So I'm going to name it, let's say, TechVav, right? Then you can set the version. Like it this. Then I'm going to go with the free version for now, and then create database. Right. Still creating. So as soon as we have this ready, we're going to copy our external database URL, and we're going to make migrations to it and then migrate. While you advance in your career, you can start getting used to it. You would also want to use Docker file to customize so that once it's deploying, it's doing its stuff, it's doing its stuff and all of that, right? So you can also on the command, we'll get to that anyway. So this is ready. We're going to copy our database URL here, and then we're going to use it here instead of this. So to make this work on both parties, what we do, remember I said we're going to change this to false, but to support both local and production environment, I would like to have debug on my env such that I can actually define debug. If I am running on local, I have it to true, and if on production false. So because we want to simulate a production environment, I'm going to set it false and allow host. This is the host. These are some of the important settings that you need for production. So allow host is needed when you're setting, or when you to put, for instance, where this project is going to be hosted is where you put, or rather is the URL you're going to put here. So for this, at this point, we don't have this yet. So we're going to leave it at this, right? So let's have if debug, if debug, so I'm going to allow a host, then if it's not, if debug is false, and I want us to have this, we're going to change it, but for now, let's leave it to that. Then the next thing I talked about is database. So if our debug is true, then I want it to be this. Meanwhile, if then else we have this, right? Else means it's false, which means it's in production. And we're going to utilize is define a database URL. You put database URL here. I'm going to remove this and put it again, database URL equals, right? Then here, this database URL, we're going to use a package DJ database to import this pip install. We're going to install this. Make sure you install this, right? So with that, you can see I have that installed already. You can utilize this to configure your database appropriately. So all you need to do is pass in your database URL. So the next thing is, where is our database URL? So we get back here. We're going to get back to our render and copy it from here. We're going to use external, and when we are running it inside on render, we use internal. So here, place it here. Then with this, let's run our migrations to that database.